Davidson with UPS. I have been with UPS. I'm on my 18th year. Spent most of my career in the corporate transportation group, purchasing outside transportation, and I've been in supplier diversity since 2019. So what I thought I would do today is just talk a little bit about kind of how we buy at UPS, kind of some of the things that we do buy, what we purchase, and then talk a little bit about our procurement function and how we do bids and how what's things to look for to kind of help you, guide you through that process if you ever do receive an actual RFP from UPS. So I thought I'd first start out a little bit about UPS. I'm sure most people know UPS as the brown trucks that deliver to your house. But just a little few facts. We've not gotten an update for the full year of 2022 yet, but I know we have reached over $100 billion in revenue in 2022, over 500,000 employees and servicing 220 plus countries. And, the big part for you as suppliers is really, about our vehicles. We have over 120,000 vehicles, including 13,000 of those, which are alternative fuel vehicles like natural gas. And we are starting to move to electric as well, and moving into having EV stations put in our hubs to charge our package cars as well. Our supplier diversity effort began way back in 1992. But I will tell you, for a while, we only had 2 people in our supplier diversity group. We had a manager and a supervisor that kind of helped the manager, work through all of the events and everything that was going on. So really, we look at the supplier diversity was more like a program for many, many years. In 2018, we kind of launched a new, more than just a program. We wanted it to be an actual strategy in the procurement function. And Jose Turkinich, our CPO, he hired and brought in our VP, Chris Oswald, to kind of, transform our supplier diversity efforts. So I'm happy to say now we have 7 people in our group. We have our VP, who is now, we're starting to take our strategy globally. So we do have a VP, we have 3 managers, and each of us as managers are aligned with different verticals. And what I mean by verticals is in our business, we have an indirect vertical, a direct vertical, and a transportation vertical. So if you think about all the indirect categories like professional services, marketing, HR services, IT, those types of things. And then direct would include more products that we purchase, like fuel, package cars, trailers, tractors, construction, those types of things. And then, of course, our transportation vertical, which is transportation, which is more of our third party stuff that we buy. So that's kind of how we're aligned. And I'm actually aligned with the direct vertical. So I thought we would talk a little bit about all the different, kind of how we purchase, and then I'll try to go through and give you examples of the types of things that we purchase. So one thing that we always try to, tips that we give suppliers and how to deal, not just with UPS, but really any large corporation, is before you approach a corporation, someone in supplier diversity, make sure you do your research. Know the company that you're going to be talking to. There's so much information out there on our websites about, all the new technologies and innovations that we're bringing in, everything about what we're doing, what we're buying. So it does help. I promise you that I have had some suppliers that cold called me, and I was so impressed that right off the bat, they knew just as much about what we were doing in our business than I did. So that is very, very helpful. So do your research. Another big one is patience. I know it's very difficult when you as a supplier, you're wanting to get contracts and you're wanting to get your business going, especially with large corporations. It can take time. You got to start to form your a relationship or your networking through the supplier diversity group, because we're essentially the key, and we can let you in the door to our procurement folks. So we serve as advocates for you. So, just be patient. A lot of times it takes time, depending on our contract, where we are in the annual cycle, in the category. We buy fuel, for instance, every 2 years. So those contracts are 2 years. So sometimes, depending on when you are connected with UPS, it could take some time. And then also know and understand, we do buy based on value and the best value that you as a supplier can bring to UPS. We don't have set asides, so we can't say that we're going to give a certain percentage of our business to small businesses or diverse businesses. But I will tell you, we do have goals, and we have very aggressive goals, and we try to meet those goals and make sure that we are also buying on best value. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. And then the last thing is, value doesn't always mean low cost. If you think about a lot of the things that we purchase, there's lots of other things that go into besides price. Now, when we're buying bottled water, yes, we're probably going to be looking at the lowest cost for bottled water and maybe distribution, how you can distribute. But a lot of the other things that we purchase, think about beyond just the price. Think about total cost of ownership. What is your speed to market? Is there a way you can help in the reduction implementation costs? The reliability of your supply chain. There's lots of other ways that you can add value to a corporation besides just the cost. So always think about that as well. Now let's talk a little bit about what we purchase. So thinking about UPS and what we do, we have an airline. So we buy lots of aircraft parts and aircraft maintenance. We have lots of automobiles on the road, package cars, tractor trailers. So we're buying parts, and we're buying tires, and we're buying fuel for both the airline and for our package cars. And we're also buying alternative fuels like natural gas. So think about those types of things as well. General contractors. We're not really, I think, building any new facilities this year or probably even next year. But if you think about all the work that goes into large facilities, large buildings, we have to retrofit some of our buildings as we add more conveyor belts and our hubs to sort packages. But there's lots of just general contracting things that might be smaller projects that we're doing all the time. Facilities management. Think about every facility that we have, including our corporate office and our other offices, is that we have to have janitorial services. We have to have building maintenance services and landscaping, all those types of services. Material handling equipment. We do purchase all of our equipment now, and that's stuff like forklifts and those types of equipment that you buy, that you use in a distribution facility. We used to lease those, but now we are purchasing, so we don't do any leasing of that type of equipment. Trailer equipment rental. We do rent trailers mainly during peak season, which is the holiday season from Thanksgiving to Christmas. So we do rent, I think one year we had probably over 25,000 trailers that we rented just for the peak season. So we do rent equipment, and then transportation. And when I say transportation, everybody thinks about UPS as a brown package car that delivers to your house, but we also purchase a lot of outside transportation with large 53-foot trailers and tractors. So we do a lot of in that area as well. And then you've got a lot of your services like professional services, employee services, also hazmat waste removal. We do have cafeteria services in two of our corporate offices, and then some of our hubs actually have maybe might have a small cafeteria as well. Then you have marketing services, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in a minute on another slide. Security guards. So think about every building that we own and we have across the U.S. We have to have security for those buildings, and we do outsource all of our security at all of our buildings. And then think about all the supplies that you buy to just run your everyday business, including all of the packaging supplies that we buy when you ship your packages in envelopes or boxes, those types of things. And then on the IT side, we do purchase IT hardware, and there's some software that we purchase, and then we also purchase a lot of telecom. So in the next couple of slides, what I'm going to do is go into a little bit more detail about each of these categories and what the requirements are and what we're looking for in these areas. When you talk about aircraft parts, here's the list of all the aircraft that we actually run in the UPS airline. And then also just keep in mind, if you do happen to have aircraft parts, that we do have to have everything has to be in a system, and it also has to be FAA Part 145. And if you're in that business, you understand that. I'm not sure I do fully, but anyway, they have to be FAA 145 certified repair stations to do any kind of maintenance on our aircraft. And then automotive parts. So here's kind of just an overview of all the different kinds of automotive parts that we buy for different types of equipment. And I will tell you that for smaller parts, we do have a warehouse in Nashville that we house all of our inventory for most of our automotive parts, except for those that are larger, like engines, like a tractor trailer engine. We would purchase that directly from a manufacturer or from who we buy it from. So typically, if you do automotive parts, you have to be willing to ship and keep inventory in our warehouse, which is located in Nashville. Talking about general contracting, we do hire a lot of general contractors in all different kind of areas, the electrical or plumbing, HVAC. These are the types of buildings that we build. Those are called tilt-up and precast building methods. We do have some prerequisites like, minimum, liability coverage. Maybe would ask you what kind of other construction projects that you've done in the past with other companies. You don't have to be LEED certified, but we do like any of our contractors at least be knowledgeable about LEED certification requirements. And then also we may ask, depending on the project, we may ask for you to provide financial statements just to make sure, depending on the size of the project, that you are financially stable to manage that project. Material handling equipment. These are stuff like forklifts, all the stuff on our conveyors. So any equipment that you would see or typically have in a warehouse situation or distribution center, that's kind of what we buy. Also think about in the airlines, we buy tugs and other things that move product within the warehouse and within our airlines. And then we talked earlier about transportation providers. So we do use outside transportation providers, especially during peak season, but we do utilize them in other parts of our business all year long. We do look only for asset-based transportation providers. So anyone that actually has assets, has tractors, has trailers. UPS bought a freight broker. You may be familiar with Coyote Logistics. We purchased them probably, it's been 9 or 10 years ago. So we don't actually look to do business with freight brokers anymore, since we do own a freight broker. So if you do have assets, actual trucks, you can either do business direct with UPS, or if you're a smaller fleet, even up to just 1 or 5 trucks, we could also hook you up with Coyote as well. Now we're getting more into like the indirect vertical side of the professional services. So I will tell you, for staffing, contingent staffing, because we do hire so many, especially during the peak season. Like I think this last year we hired close to 100,000 contingent workers for peak season. We do use a managed service provider called TAPFIN, and some of you may be familiar with them. They may be called Workforce. We do use them for for staffing, and then for some of our other kind of professional services. But we do, I will say, we try to make an effort to partner if we have some diverse businesses in those areas, and there's a opportunity within the TAPFIN network for us to work directly with you as a staffing, diverse staffing agency. We will consider that. Employee services. So think about all the things that you do with training, and we buy uniforms for all of our drivers and a lot of people that work in the hubs. Recognition, like we do lots of recognition, so we do purchase those types of employee services. And shuttle services. If you think about, for example, our hub, our Worldport hub in Louisville, Kentucky, the facility is actually on airport property. So we have to have shuttle services to shuttle in all of our employees that work. There's about, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 that work there every night. So we have to shuttle all those employees in. So we do purchase that as well. Marketing services. We do have a agency of record, which is called the Martin Agency. So we will connect marketing services type suppliers with our agency of record. But a lot of times, if there's smaller opportunities that the Martin Agency doesn't manage or handle themselves, we will look to the outside and have people that can either do, creative services, design, market research, production of some type. So we do buy that some as well. Continuing with marketing services, communications and advertising. So, kind of think about what unique research insights or capabilities differentiate you from your competitors. So think about that if you do some kind of marketing service. Have some examples of some past campaigns or work that you've done before. And then we were talking about security guards. So we do hire both armed and unarmed. Most of our armed guards are on the East Coast only. And then we do on occasion hire off-duty police officers as well. So we do have security, and we do that with third parties at every facility within our network. Supplies, as I've talked about before, any of our mailing supplies, packaging materials, printing, anything that we would keep in a supply room, typically like you would buy even from like an office supply company, like an Office Depot or whatever. We buy all those types of supplies. And then we actually have what's called a buy desk. So if you think about things that you purchased for a facility from a Granger, we have lots of other types of suppliers like that we have a buy desk. So anybody in the field, if they have something that they need, whether it's like a screwdriver or a hammer or anything that would be like a supply like that, we have a buy desk. And then all of our suppliers that are that we have contracts with, that have pricing with us, we'll check and see who has availability, the closest location, and the best price. So that's also an opportunity if you do have connections with those types of supplies. And then on the IT hardware, if you think about it, we buy everything that most an office would buy: laptops and desktops and printers and copiers and all those types of hardware storage. We have 2 large kind of storage locations in the US. And then all of our IT, actually, just as information, our IT is headquartered in Mahwah, New Jersey. So that's where most of our IT staff works, and that's where that's housed, not here in Atlanta. Software purchases. There are lots of software that we do buy. That's anything with business applications or databases or cloud-based solutions, those types of softwares. Telecom, anything with data management, service or voice, infrastructure, any of those types of telecom services we also purchase. And then I talked about facilities management. It's just a list of all the different things that we do buy and purchase for our facilities. I will tell you, we do have a partnership with CBRE, and what we do is we utilize their systems to manage our facilities management. So they will do the dispatch of the work, and they will pay the suppliers, but the contract is actually held by UPS. So we pretty much make the decisions on what suppliers we utilize, say, for instance, for janitorial services, but CBRE would be the one that dispatch the service to you as a supplier, and then they would pay you as well. And then let's just talk about how. So if you think, okay, I do some of this stuff, if you happen to do this stuff, what can I do to engage with UPS? So if you go to our website, and I'll have it on the final page so you can take it down, but we have lots of information on our website about how to connect with us, what certifications we accept. If you're not certified, where you can go to get certified, and links to those types of organizations like NaVOBA. And then in that, there's 2 steps. Step 1 is that's really all the links that help you talk about getting certified. I'm assuming because you're all on this call today, you're probably certified with NaVOBA, but just for future reference, you could go to that link in step 1, and it would connect you with all the different certifying agencies that are available. And then to register on our portal as a diverse supplier, you would go to step 2. And this actually will help you register within UPS as a diverse supplier. So when we are looking for suppliers for a specific opportunity, we may go to that portal and do searches on that as well. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is we had talked about how UPS purchases. So this is a little bit to give you a little bit of insight into our procurement process and how we purchase things. So what we try to tell people is, think like a procurement person. So if you have your own business, you are probably buying and purchasing products and services yourself. So think about it in those terms. Typically, we have a developed category strategy. It's especially for anything that's of large or complex or critical spend areas in what we purchase. We do all kinds of research. We use the Hackett group to do research on suppliers and the market of what we're trying to purchase. So we do try to develop a category strategy for all of our main big, large categories. And I will tell you, part of that category strategy, which is where we've kind of grown our supplier diversity involvement, is we also have a supplier diversity strategy as part of that category strategy. So depending on what the category is, how can we engage with more diverse suppliers in that category? So that's also part of that category strategy when we're building it. And then we also have what we call a strategic sourcing process. So like the category strategy process, but it may take a little deeper dive into parts of that spend. So looking at the spend profile, determine what the business requirements are, access to supply markets, look at kind of market research on a particular, what's going on in that, like fuel, for instance, what's going on in the market in fuel. And then part of that process is you kind of build a profile, you determine the requirements, you research the market, you develop your strategy, you execute that strategy, and then you develop what we call a change or transition management plan. And then once you're done with that, then it's just monitor and assess. So once we're through the procurement process, then we're going to monitor and assess how that relationship is going with that supplier. And then understand our questionnaire and pricing template. Sometimes they can be a little complicated. And a lot of that reason is because depending on the category, we might be analyzing large amounts of data. So our templates are set up in a way to help us be able to manage all that data and be able to do some analytics on that data through the procurement process. And then the types of procurement process or activities that we do. So it could just be a request for information. We actually just ran a large RFI in the marketing services area. So we probably sent out an RFI to over 200 diverse suppliers. And essentially what we were trying to do is just try to gather information, because if you think about marketing, there's so many different areas of marketing. What's your expertise in marketing? Is it just design? Is it production? Where is it? What is it that you have expertise in? So we may do an RFI just to try to gather information. Then we may ask for an actual quote, an RFQ. So we may just need your availability, need to understand your availability and your price. And then we also have RFPs for request for proposal. And it's more stuff for technical requirements if there's some technical information that we need. And then on occasion, and I haven't seen this done a lot, but I know that we have done this, we may do a request for a solution. So if we have, something that we're having issues trying to determine how to manage it, we may ask you as a supplier to come up with potentially some innovative solutions to what our problem is. So we do that on occasion, but not very often. And then how we actually do our sourcing is we use Coupa. We transitioned to Coupa back in, I think started in 2019. And so Coupa is now our total, what we call source to pay platform, and what we utilize to do all of our sourcing. I would say majority of our sourcing. There are some times that you may just get an email request depending on, like I talked earlier, we have that buy desk. So we might just send you an email and say, hey, do you have this particular product we can purchase, and you may just get an email. But typically you're going to get it through Coupa sourcing or the Coupa sourcing optimization, depending on the category. So, you will have, the opportunity to ask questions. There always is a contact when you receive a bid proposal from us, request. So, just don't be shy to ask questions, because how you answer the request, whether it's a RFP or an RFI or whatever it is, that's how you're going to make your first impression. So make sure don't be shy to ask questions. There always is an opportunity to do that, because other people may ask the same question, and they typically will share the questions, not who they come from, but if they get the same kind of question over and over, they will share that with everyone that they sent the RFP to. So, because you may have had that same question. So don't ever hesitate to ask questions if you don't understand something in the request. And that's essentially all I have. I did put on here our ups.com/supplier diversity that goes direct to our website. And then we have a group email that is monitored every day by someone in our group. It's diversity@ups.com. So, if you do have, if you do any of the things that we talked about today, I would encourage you to reach out via email, and you can just mention my name specifically, and I will make sure to follow up with you. And I'm open to take questions as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Melody. I'm going to just try to point out a couple of the really significant things that I heard before we go to some questions. But right off the bat, Melody talked about, doing your research and understanding the prospective customer that you're going to approach. And I appreciate you saying that, because we reiterate that all the time when we're talking with suppliers about getting ready for corporate contracting, and especially representing themselves as a diverse supplier. So you confirmed what we all preach all the time. So great to hear that. Thank you as well for describing, the best ways to interact with you, and breaking down, the various processes as well as channels within UPS that have their procurement strategies. One question was about the UPS stores. Do you also procure goods and services for those stores, or is that some sort of different process?
So that's a very good question. We get that a lot. So I will tell you, UPS stores are actual franchises. So the person that opens them, they do own the store. So the only thing that we purchase for them would be all of their packaging materials. So everything, when you go in a UPS store to ship something via UPS, and they have all the boxes and shipping materials, we do purchase that for all of the UPS stores. But they essentially, other than that, they make their own purchases.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. Let's see if anyone else has other questions. If you do, please join the chat. Click on the chat box and type in your question for Melody about the UPS procurement process.
Don't be shy.
You were very thorough, so maybe everybody heard all the answers to the questions they had before. You've got a comment here. Great presentation. I agree.
So
question about your team. How big is your team? You started to talk about that.
Yeah, I did see a question though about, do you ever have a need for vetted metal fabrication and machining company? Yes, we do. So we do some work with people that we have some metal fabrication that we've done. And the cybersecurity expert, we do have work in cybersecurity. I since I'm not aligned to the professional services side, I would have to get more details of that. But if you're interested in that, you can let me know. Yeah, you asked about our team. So yeah, we have 3 supplier diversity managers, which I mentioned earlier. Each are aligned to a different vertical. We actually have one manager that is their responsibility is reporting. So, you find that your reporting and how you measure is very critical and very important, and it's very, very difficult as well. So we do have somebody dedicated strictly to all of our reporting, and then they have somebody that reports to them, a supervisor that is in reporting as well. And then we have a specialist, and she's kind of just keeps us all in line, like keeps us in order, reminds us of when we have events going on. I mean, you think about, I think last year, between virtual and in person, we probably attended amongst the group over 50 events during the year. So it's a lot to keep managed and keep up with. We typically go to in person to the larger agencies, like we go to NMSDC and we go to WeBank. And then one person might go to some of the other types of events with other agencies. So yeah, it can get pretty busy and pretty daunting.
I'll say, well, everyone wants to work with you. And we have a question about your marketing RFI. You mentioned that you recently had a large RFI from marketing services. Is that closed, or is it too late for someone to still get their information to you?
It actually has closed. I will ask though if what they're planning to do, and essentially just to understand why and how we did that. Like as I mentioned, there's so many different types of marketing services that people do. And so when we are meeting as supplier diversity professionals, when we're meeting people at conferences or matchmaking events, whatever, or virtual events, we ask somebody, what do you do in marketing? Well, a lot of times they say, well, we do it all. We do from A to Z. Well, that doesn't really help. So what we finally convinced our marketing folks to do is allow us to do an RFI so that we could collectively get information from as many diverse suppliers as we could to find out what specifically do they do. Where do they have offices? Where are they regionally, local, nationally, international, whatever. And I think the RFI was about, I think they said probably 150, up to 150 questions for people to fill out. And then we had some of our i.e. industrial engineers that UPS hires a lot of, and they took all that data information and made some dashboards from it, so that our marketing folks, if they're interested in doing some kind of looking for somebody to do something very specific, they could use that dashboard to drill down even by area and by expertise, like it's specific, like what do you do in marketing services? And so what we're going to try to do is see if the other categories will do something similar. And I'm pushing them to do it in the construction side of the business, because if you think about constructions, there's so many things in general contractors that you can do. You may only do electrical work, or you may only do plumbing, or you may do all of it. Do you outsource it all? Do you do it yourself? Own employees, all these different things. So we're going to try to convince them, the category, to let us do an RFI in construction and general contractors, so that we can start to build a good database and know specifically what that supplier does and where their niche is, and where their expertise is. So that was kind of the marketing RFI was kind of more of a test to see how it would work out. But so far it seemed it yielded some good results. So we're hoping now that we're going to be able to take those results, And when our marketing folks are looking for anything specific, they may utilize that information to do that.
Great, thank you. Somebody else asked, you mentioned at the onset, what your total spend is, but what percentage of that is done with diverse suppliers?
So we used to track percentage, and we still do, but our goals used to be based on percentage. So we used to have a goal of 15% combined, small and diverse, and then 5% diverse. But then we started thinking about, and our CPO actually asked us to change how we do that, because how do you know what 5% and 20% or 15% is of what, right? Like, it can sound really good or bad, but depending on what your baseline spend is, what does that really mean? So in 2022, we actually started tracking it by dollars. So we just got our year-end dollar spend, and we spent, I think it was $4.2 billion with small and diverse suppliers. And we spent a little over $1 billion just with diverse alone. So we track two. We track small and diverse combined and diverse. And the reason we do that is because we're a subcontractor to the federal government. So we have compliance, and we have to submit a contracting plan to them every year, and we have to have goals, and most of those goals are based on small business, not necessarily diverse. I mean, it's both, but it's mainly because of the government that this is a small business thing. So that's why we track it like that.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Great job. Now I'm just checking here to see if there are any other questions that we didn't get to. I don't see any more at the moment. So last chance, everybody. Can you, if you still have a question for Melody, we're going to be wrapping up shortly.
Yeah, and if you think of something later, you have the email, the group email, just feel free to send it, and you can just reference my name, and our specialist will get that email directly to me, and I'll respond.
And so is that the process for registering? Did you give a link to everyone about, how to start the process with you?
Yeah, you start the process with going to our website. That's the ups.com/supplier diversity. And you go to step 2, and that will take you to our portal.
Got it.
If you have any questions, or if you register and you want to let me know, you can send me an email to that group email box.
Perfect. Okay. That was a question we had 1 or 2 different people ask. So thank you for sharing that again, repeating that part. I know it was on one of your slides. So I believe we are out of questions. So I'd just like to say once again, thank you very much, Melody, for sharing so much insight with us. We look forward to hearing about some successes in the future with some of our veterans and service disabled vets working with UPS. So once again, thanks everyone for your time today, and we'll see you next time on Marching Forward Monday.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.